Good to see you. Right. So, have we left it too late? Is it all over? Is it too late? I mean, should the work have been done already? And as we saw with the stock market last week, now the storm clouds are well and truly gathering.
No, it's not too late. And yes, it is time to fix the roof. And the market trepidations that we have seen in the last few days are not worrying me about the imperative of fixing the roof. Those market movements were clearly, in our view, necessary market corrections. The markets have functioned well. There is plenty of financing that is still available to finance the economy. So I would not focus on what has happened in the last few days. I would focus on the imperatives of change going forward and the need to fix the roof. I think in this country, that was anticipated in due course, and many reforms have been conducted. In the region, there are countries, from their own saying, that had plenty of time to actually fix the roof when the price of oil was at around 100 and haven't done it, and which are now saying, oh my gosh, we wish we had fixed the roof then. It's much more critical now, and for some of them it's very urgent to fix the roof. So that's my view.
Why are you not worried when the market goes up and down 1,000 in the space of moments?
I think we said it several times before, and I think many observers and economists would agree with that. Asset prices had gone up massively, durably, and we all agreed at the time when it was so high that there had to be market corrections. We've seen it. Volatility has risen, clearly, and the indices are showing it, but it's something that was needed.
I don't want to spend too much longer on this because we want to talk about bigger issues, but on this question, to use the horrible phrase that everybody uses, though, on the macroprudential basis, the volatility that has been created, the huge swings, high-frequency trading and all that, do we need more regulation of the markets to sort of to dampen down these vast swings?
I believe that we have focused exclusively for a period of time since the crisis on improved regulations, on an entity-based and on national base, which was generally the ratification of the Basel III agreements applicable to banks, or the ratifications of the regulatory environment applicable to insurance companies. I think we need to move from those levels, which have taken us in a safer place, to regulation of activities, not entities, because it's not going to be about the banks, it's not going to be about the insurance, and we need to anticipate where the next crisis will come from. Will it be the shadow banking, the good shadow banking, the not so good shadow banking? Will it be cryptocurrencies rising to the sky? So I think the focus on activities needs to move and shift to regulation on the entities and on a cross-national basis. And that's where I...
Much harder.
Much harder, but needed, because not doing that, not fixing that roof, which is a universal roof, because money knows no boundaries. Money moves around. And that regulatory environment needs to be agreed internationally. The implementation and the, fixing the pipes and all of that will have to be done at the national level, but it's international.
Let's talk about the real issues that are affecting. You were talking earlier to me about the sheer number of people in this part of the world, and I also, we can add on, of course, countries like India, where there are some challenges by sheer size. What were the numbers?
Everyone in this room has heard about AI, DLT, IoT, and this is really important, of course. But we need to keep in mind the people. And the people in this region are young in the main. 60% of them are under 25. a third of them in the region are either unemployed, without training, not going to school. 60% of the people in this region believe that you get to where you want to get because of whom you know, not what you know. And 40% of the young people in this region believe that societies are not going to offer them jobs. And I think we need to focus our mind on that, because it's not just today's problem, it's going to be tomorrow's problem as well, with 5 million new young people coming to the market every year for the next 5 years. So all this wonderful and exciting stuff about AI, Internet of Things, distributed ledger technologies, need to be geared towards not the billionaires of tomorrow, not the low number of people who will be employed to make that new game, but how will it be introduced in our economies to support the young people of tomorrow? But it's a very hard challenge.
Right, but I feel I've heard this before in a different way. Whether it be .com in the 90s, this needs to be for those without. Whether it's internet, just the basic internet, this needs to be for the generation without. Now we're talking IoT, AI, for the generation without. But the generation without never seems to get with.
And the generation without seems to get bigger.
And more dangerous.
And more dangerous because the options are not many. The options can be, if there is no hope, believing anybody who is going to give you fake hope. And that's a real problem. So many more of them, much more connected, understanding lots of the challenges and the lack of expectations coming up. And that requires that we focus on either resolving the crisis when it comes or preventing the crisis before it happens. And I would be on the side of before rather than when it does.
Managing Director,
fixing the roof.
Managing Director, you have got no realistic hope of preventing the crisis before. All governments ever know how to do is deal with the crisis once it's there. Maybe I'm cynical, but I've lived through too many government crises to know that you can warn to your heart's content.
You're right, except that the memories of the financial crisis of 2008, 2009 are still alive. They're not far away. The pressure of the people who are coming to the market, the expectations that they have, should create that degree of urgency. If you wait until the crisis is here, it's far more difficult to resolve. If you anticipate, and that, you're right, it's very hard because you need the courage to explain what you're doing. And whether you're raising VAT because you're shifting to a new business model, because the price of oil has changed, because the need for public services is there, or whether you are doing a structural reforms of another kind, you need that same courage. But it is being done. Look at what has been done in the Emirates. VAT is now in place as of January the 1st. Nobody likes it. Nobody, right? But if you ask people, do you like security? Do you like nice roads? Do you like good hospitals? Do you like public education? People will say yes. And that needs to be financed. That needs to be transitioned through another model when the sources of revenue has changed.
Do you see part of your job now, as this transition from crisis to roof repair or whatever, do you see part of your job to now sound the clarion call of warning about this danger? Because I'll say it, you don't have to say it, you're talking about two options for people without jobs. They either fall deep into poverty, or there's an option of radicalization, which of course has its own attendant horrors that we know too well. Yeah. Do you see it's part of your job to warn?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course, because the mandate of the IMF is to participate in better stability, better prosperity, and clearly the challenges are here. And the growth that we have around the world at the moment, 3.9% next year, is a good background against which to try to fix the roof. And this is not just about this region. I did mention numbers for this region because we care and we are here and we work for the region. But it's a challenge for everybody, and it's a moment when you can't just sit back and say, okay, 3.9%, that's good, and in this region, 3.5% in the main, that's fine. No, no. Things have to be done, and roof has to be fixed, and the model has to change. And if that was not enough, the way in which digitalization, the way in which new technologies are pushing us as well should be an encouragement rather than a threat.
Is anybody listening? Because I look at, you know, Angel Guerrier this morning talked about the length of time it took Germany to get a government, the Netherlands to get a government, to look at how long it's taken. I mean, the Brexit negotiations are well and truly on the ropes.
But you know what? Sometimes a country and an economy can actually work without a government for a while. It's been okay sometimes. We have seen it in the case of the Netherlands. We've seen it in the case of Belgium. Belgium actually went to war without a government once. So I'm not suggesting that we should do away with governments, but sometimes building a coalition, having a solid agreement which settles each and every corner of the governance going forward is a good idea. And sometimes it's better to wait, negotiate, settle, go forward, rather than haste and fall on your face because you don't have all the coalition members with you.
Are you worried about the current situation? Because I've interviewed you a good few times through the crisis, out the other side of the crisis, into growth, but I'm hearing in your voice not shrill alarm, but a sort of a deeper, this is an opportunity. If we do not, then we really will be in deep trouble.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm reasonably optimistic because of the landscape that we have at the moment. But I'm ringing not the alarm signal, but the strong encouragement and warning signal that things must be done, and we cannot just sit back and wait for growth to continue as normal.
Hashtag me too.
You too.
Well.
You too?
Me too, you too.
You and me.
Oh, that's a new one. Hashtag you and me. Go on, I dare everybody now to hashtag you and me.
But you know what? I'm saying that because we're just joking and we're old friends.
Yeah.
But I think it's a critical message, actually, that it's not just about women, number one, because men have been subject occasionally, and any occasion is one too many, to harassment as well. And second, what I'm concerned about is that we move from this emotion and anger, which was necessary and which had to come out. We move from that to action. And for that, we need to be you and me, men and women together, in order to address the situation, prevent it, and when it happens, resolve it.
This has now moved into the next stage again of this issue, hasn't it? Because, all right, I'm going to be slightly controversial here.
Yeah.
If you get a group of men together, I guarantee you, Managing Director, it will not be long.
They don't talk about it.
Sorry?
No,
well, if they do talk about it, it will be in hushed tones, and it will be, many of these allegations are just thrown, and, you know, the allegation is thrown, and they're now, the burden of proof has shifted. The allegation's made, now you've got to defend. It's almost as you're guilty by allegation. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the allegations aren't true or whatever, but can you see how that pendulum, as far as men are concerned, or not?
Yeah.
The president talked about it.
Well, whoever talks about it, I'm sure that there are some occasional wrong allegations here and there, because you cannot expect any system to be perfect. But in the main, there were lots of true allegations that didn't come up, that didn't come through, that were not picked up by societies as they operated. So we need to pay attention to the 80%, which are the true allegations, and again, for which I think we need to move into action. And
what does that mean?
Help?
What does that mean in reality, action?
Oh, I'll tell you.
Please.
I'll tell you what we are doing at the IMF, because I'm fine giving general principles, but I think unless you prove what you say, you haven't advanced the debate. What we have at the IMF is a system where we have mediator, ethic advisor, diversity officers. They stand outside the normal hierarchy and they report directly to me. In addition to that, and that's a recent system that we've put in place peer for respectful workplace. And those members of staff are anywhere in the organization. They are trained to listen, to have the ability and the patience to let those emotional plea get out to the surface, and people are able to get it out of their system. They are outside the hierarchy. They are there to help, to mediate, to find solutions. They are not within the normal, reporting lines, and they can go to you if you are the boss and say, we have an issue, we need to sit down. And the expectation is that you sit down, and if you don't, I know about it, and we just simply don't tolerate it.
How do you ensure that that policy survives, not just this week and next week while #MeToo is still around, but is still valid?
When I'm gone.
Well, you put it more...
That's what you had in mind, come on.
If you wish to put it in such terms, yes.
It has to be part of the culture. It has to be, it is in the institutional lines and principles that we have, but it's in people's head that things have to change. And I'm blessed at the IMF that men and women are endorsing that, and we have men and women who are playing that role in the various departments. We are a small institution. We do not claim that we can resolve these issues on a worldwide basis, but in every company, in every institutions, you need to invent the system that is going to work so that people are respected, so that people can have their space. And I'll give you an example. We employ people from 150 different nationalities. The private space of a Japanese young economist, female, is going to be different from the private space of an Argentinian economist or from a Scottish economist. It's a different culture, it's a different environment, and we need to be attentive to that, and we need to respect that, because it's part of everybody's culture and it enriches the whole.
In the space of 15 minutes, we have just talked on 3 areas, all of which will require major change. First of all, you talked about need for change from entities to activities. Yeah. Then you talk about change of structural reform. Now you talk about change, big cultural change on Me Too. What keeps you going? I mean, you're not just trying to change to continue the house analogy, you're not just changing the light bulbs and the drapes. You're trying to do major reforms. What keeps you going to do this? Because this is root and branch stuff.
What keeps me going is often the young people, the young women who look up to me and say, we need you to continue to raise our voice and to publish studies and to do the analytical work and to provide the data that can be trusted. What keeps me going is my children who are innovative, inventive, and who are still in the process of finding their space in the world. But it's generally, what we can live for them, what we can help them with, how we can help them accomplish what they were blessed with and can accomplish in their life. So that keeps me going.
But it's the temptation to go for the low-hanging fruit. No. I mean, it's like His Highness has done here. Going for the big stuff, the major reform that's going to change a society for the next generation and beyond. That's the difficult part.
But you know what? The major reforms that will change society for the future are all composed of multiple small things that all need to move as well. You don't resolve a huge problem with a huge Big Bang reform. You reform it by dissecting it into small pieces and then addressing each and every segment of the problem. That takes time and courage. And I think that there are places in the world, and the Emirates is certainly one, if I look at the numbers of women in higher education, women in STEM, if I look at the progress of digitalization, when I look at the incubators, when I look at the focus on innovation, this is not one big thing. It's multiple channels of changes that are taking place and that are being advocated. And I'm not suggesting that everything is perfect, no. But I think that problems are resolved bit by bit and by sort of segmenting them.
Ladies and gentlemen, time and courage, and I think that we can all do one thing. I shall hashtag you and me.
Okay, I'll join.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Managing Director of the IMF.